19,054. This is the score for Roo Code plus Sonnet 4 going into my August evals. The scores are going to be higher because I've added some additional tests, but keep this in mind as I go through the scores for Qwen 3 Coder. We've got it sitting at programming number 2 today on OpenRouter, programming number 6 for Kimi K2 on OpenRouter, and we also have a crap ton of tokens going through Qwen 3 Coder free version. So all the scores that I'm showing you, where possible, I am setting it to the Alibaba provider. Now, I have actually done a significant amount of testing with Shoots, and it also performs fairly well. I did not see any, as I was doing like day-to-day coding, I didn't see anything crazy different about it. I will say though, Shoots does have something where I believe because of this crazy cheap price here, they're actually taking your data. Yeah, to our knowledge, this provider may use your prompts and completion to train new models. So just know that the provider you use changes your experience so much. I've been talking to people on X who are saying Qwen 3 Coder is terrible. It's not doing a good job. I got very frustrated. They're using Cline. They can't set the provider in there. They're getting who knows what. They could be getting the FP4 version of this. And then they're getting a subpar experience. Try it in Roo Code. Try it in something where you can actually set the provider because it will make a big difference. The other thing that's surprising to me, and LM Arena, I still wonder how much this can be gamed, but regardless of this, it is number one, tied for number one for web dev. I'm not exactly sure how the tying works because these scores are, they're not exactly the same, but, whatever. We still have Qwen 3 Coder up there with Claude Opus 4, Gemini 2.5 Pro, DeepSeek R1. That's pretty awesome. And it has it slightly beating Claude Sonnet 4. A couple other things just to kind of point out. GLM 4.5 came out. I've been doing some initial testing on them. And I do not think GLM 4.5 is as good as Qwen 3 Coder. But I may need to dial in the temperature or some settings or something to get it performing correctly. I did attempt to set up Qwen Code. So this is Qwen Code here. And I tried to set it up with OpenRouter. And I tried it without Nitro, and I tried it with Nitro, and I just get stuck in this like infinite loop. It's just gibberish. So I almost left it, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go pull up my Alibaba Cloud account, set it up. It worked awesome. Just stuff like this, just the providers are all over the board here. I really wanted to test it in GitHub Copilot, so I added it as a custom model. You can kind of see that here. Kind of hard to see. Let me zoom in a little bit. But I couldn't actually get it to ever return anything. Tried a bunch of different things. I just gave up on Copilot. So that's fortunately, that's just a 0 right now because I couldn't do that. I did want to show Cline. So I actually sorted by throughput and Qwen 3 Coder. You can kind of see the slug here. But ultimately, I can't select a provider. So I think I got lucky because fortunately for me, I'm pretty sure like when I was running this that the Alibaba provider was the fastest. So I'm hoping that because by throughput, it directed it to that. And the scores actually were pretty good. So I am just noting that there were cases like this where I couldn't actually set it. Now, Copilot 0, we talked about that. The other disappointing thing was SST Open Code because it's close. Like, there were some of the evals that it worked great on. Others, it would try to do tool calls that didn't exist. And so it would just crap out. So it's really unfortunate that it's as low as it is. But it is something I think they can fix probably relatively easily, especially when you see how much the other scores converge with each other. All right, so let's get into the evals. And this to me is amazing. So a couple things. This is our baseline, and I'm putting this here because I haven't got through all the Sonnet tests, but I do have the Roo Code ones locked in. They aren't beating it, they aren't tied with it, but they're freaking close. Look at Trey. I've actually been liking Trey more and more. Now, I do not have solo mode. This is not ran with solo mode. This is me setting up Qwen 3 Code in Trey, and it's nearing that of Roo Code Sonnet 4. Like, this is so freaking close. Then we have Windsurf, which also does an incredible job with Qwen 3 Coder. In fact, just to kind of elaborate this, the margin difference between this bulk right here is so low that if I were to rerun these 1,000 times, you might have slight variations between them. So I do want to say there is a margin of error difference, right? Because ultimately, it's just like when you're testing anything, like a video game frame rate or anything like that. There's going to be variance that happens. The variance here is incredibly low. What that shows me, Trey works good. It was very consistently higher than everyone else. Windsurf was very consistently higher than I call them the Cline families. But we've got Cline, Qwen Code, Kilo, Roo Code, all doing basically the same. I've got them in this order, but I wouldn't think about them being much different than anything else. I also want to point out Roo Code Kimi K2. It did hit a lower score, but not by much. I do plan to run this across all the models as well. Kimi K2 is another tough one because of the open router providers just being all over the board, so locking that in. And just to confirm, what did I end up using for that? I ended up using the Grok open router one, which does seem to have stabilized, because I ended up running through a bunch of tests, Grok open router, but I did keep getting rate limited on it, which was kind of painful. Then there's Aider, 13,730. So this is one where it starts to deviate a little bit, and then open code. This model is literally state of the art. Like, I have no other way to say it, but it does have flaws. And I do want to talk a little bit about the flaws, because even though these evals show it up here with Sonnet, Sonnet still is the king. The first major flaw in my mind is vision. Because I don't know how much you guys use this, but in Sonnet 4, Claude Code, Roo Code, whatever, I give a lot of screenshots when things are going wrong, or if I have a question about something, or if I want a mock-up for something. So that matters a lot to me. And unfortunately, with Qwen 3 Code, you don't actually get vision capabilities. But, I would say that's maybe like 15% of the work I do. But it is a loss, right? Because not having that vision capability means I can't put a screenshot in there. The second thing I would say is you do need to configure it. The variable that you get from temperature isn't as high as I've seen with other models, but if you do not have it tuned in decently well, you can get poor results. So the combination of open router giving you a provider that's maybe quantized down, or there's something going on with what they've got set up, and then compare that with not having something set up right, temperature. They also recommend the top P settings, the top K settings to a certain value. But a lot of these services do not actually give you the ability to tweak any of that. So you're relying on them to configure that for you. And the final thing is price. Especially when you're like me and you're using the Alibaba open source version. There is also the Alibaba Plus version, which allows you to go up to 1 million contacts. So this is something that I actually did test out in Qwen Code to this particular one. And this one is actually known as the Qwen 3 Coder Plus version. So when you're getting up to $4.50 per million tokens up, when Claude itself, Anthropic, Claude 4, is $3. And from what I can tell, there is no prompt caching. You end up in this position where you actually can pay more at times than it would be just to pay for Sonnet 4. Now, the final thing that I would add on to that is there are cheaper providers. So Deep Infra, Shoots is very cheap, but you are sharing your data with them. Even Novita AI, you're at least locked in to these prices versus the $6 and $60, because nowhere can I find what this actually means. So, clicking in here, I see nothing that actually gives me information on when it costs $4.50 and when it costs $1.50. So I do think it's just important to know all of that. Hopefully over time, we're going to get more and more providers that are reasonably priced, and we can actually get some caching in place here. And heck, maybe if you hit some of these providers directly, like Novita AI directly, maybe you can actually get prompt caching built in there. And it would ideally need to be some sort of automatic caching. That's not something that you have to be explicit about it. So with those three downsides in mind, I do think it's important to just keep those in mind. You do need to watch your price, because I don't think it's always going to be cheaper than Sonnet, especially if you don't have caching. And with Kimi K2 being like right in the same ballpark, which is super cool to me, but not having as much context, and I'd say a little bit more variability on speed, which I still keep an eye on. Grok has gotten better, but I still keep getting rate limited significantly by it. I had a point where I was actually rate limited for like 5 minutes straight, which is really painful when you're trying to code with it. So if that gets stabilized out, it would be very interesting to do some cost analysis between Kimi K2, Sonnet 4, and Qwen 3 Coder, especially if we can figure out like what these prices actually mean when it goes up to $6. And if anyone knows, let me know in the comments below, because all I see is like my final bill, but I have no idea like when it's going to charge me more or less. At $1 and $5 without caching, it's already pretty expensive. But if I could go up to $6, that gets freaking crazy. So anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up. I just wanted to give kind of a touch on where I'm at with my evals. I have a ton more to run. I'm working on the Kimi K2 ones currently. And then post that, I'm going to be going through O3. And I'm going to be going through Sonnet 4. Sonnet 4, I did only run a couple of those so far. Finally, I've had some people ask about Gemini 2.5 Pro. Let me know in the comments below if you do want me to try to run those as well. And I could fit those in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you using Qwen 3 Coder? Have you been able to find it as good as I've been able to find it? And do you worry about the same three things that I worry about with vision, how tricky it is to configure, and the price of it? And with all that, I hope you guys have an awesome day. Peace out.